Honestly, these offers are getting ridiculous. Do they honestly think they can pull one over on me? Not hardly. Come in. Ah, there you are, darling. Did you bring the wine I asked for? Wonderful. Pour some for me, please. I need to focus on these documents. Thank you, darling. Darling, I don't think this is the wine I asked you to bring me. I believe I asked you to bring me rosé white, not red. No, it's all right, darling. But do try to learn the difference for the future. Honestly, red or white, it's still quite delicious. Honestly, this proposal is ridiculous. I'm honestly not sure if I'm supposed to take this as an insult or not. Oh, I'm just going over this proposal for a trade agreement, darling. A neighboring lord called... I can't seem to recall his name, darling. I guess his offer should have been bigger. Regardless, he wants some textiles we produce, but I couldn't simply take this as an offer. It doesn't even cover the cost of the materials, let alone the labor. He probably thinks I don't know what I'm doing. The posh nobles always assume that, and I cannot for the life of me understand why. Simply being a Lamia noble means I didn't inherit my position, nor accept outside help. To get any kind of recognition from the king, I really had to stand out, you say. But, just like half of the nobility here, somehow he thinks I just lucked into it. Personally, I chalk it up to vanity. They all think they're the ideal noble, and if someone differs from them, then that must mean they aren't cut out for it. Not hardly. Not that I mind, of course. This is a cutthroat business, and being underestimated works heavily in my favor. Now, what to do with him? We'll see how his offer changes once I undercut him. His main export is leather goods, and he gets his hides from Lady Faina, no less. She specializes in livestock, darling. But I also have facilities to produce leather, and I'm in a position to pay more than him for the hides, darling. Once his production screeches to a halt, he'll come crawling back to me, begging to back off, and I'll do it for much more than he offered me here. I'm sure it sounds cruel to your ears, darling, but he would do the same to me, and worse. And in the end, darling, it is his fault for trying to cheat me. But, regardless, that can wait till later. I think it's time we had a little chat, darling. Oh, heavens, no, darling. You're not in any sort of trouble. I just wanted to check and see how you're doing. Are you feeling well? Are you feeling at all overworked? Burnt out, perhaps? Do you feel the pay is adequate? Good. But I don't want to mislead you into thinking that I'm an overly generous person. I ask, largely because it becomes my problem when my servants feel mistreated. My own productivity and production relies on you all taking care of things that I simply don't have time for. Disgruntled employees are slow, sloppy, and occasionally sticky-fingered. It benefits us both to have you well taken care of, darling. Oh, no, darling. It's not that I'm not accommodating. I'm simply not over-generous. I won't give a servant whatever they ask for, but I can be a bit flexible if I'm convinced it's warranted. But servants who expect more than I'm willing to give are usually replaced. That doesn't seem to apply to you, though, darling. You've been a very good servant to me thus far. I'd say you put in a good effort and are quite competent. You do make mistakes, of course, darling, but you're good at correcting them and learning from them. Which is good for not making the same mistake twice. That's the important part. As long as you know how to improve yourself, darling, it doesn't matter what your skill level is when you start out. It reminds me of my early days, darling, back when I was part of the traveling caravan. I was poor and homeless at the time. They didn't hire me for any practical skill sets. They simply just needed a unique creature like myself, darling. They needed me to trade, mostly. In the select deserts, of course. Yes, it is a bit unusual, but those lands are Lamia territory. And the Lamias of the desert are very distrusting of outsiders, darling. And because of how distrusting they are of outsiders, they require each group that come into the desert have a Lamia with them to prove that they're not hostile to our kind. Really, it's just to keep outsiders away without saying as much. It's rare to find Lamias outside their territory, and you simply can't go in there and recruit one either, darling. But, lucky for them, I was in the process of leaving my homeland for employment. They had a camp set up at the border, hoping to meet Lamias such as myself. They didn't offer me much, but all I had to do was simply be there, and I knew there wasn't much else I was qualified for, so I graciously accepted. I watched and listened carefully, learned how to negotiate, learned how they spoke to customers, learned how they planned their routes. One day, I offered to help. I began to prove my worth, darling. It wasn't long before I owned the whole operation. Oh, but listen to me prattle on, boasting about myself. I actually wanted to ask about you, darling. A bit about your background. I knew the basic facts from the research I conducted prior to hiring you, but I don't know your own view of it. I see. Well, I'm happy to hear that, darling. I do my utmost to ensure the peasants who live on my lands are taken care of. Much like the servants, darling, I rely on them. So, we all benefit when they feel comfortable. Ah, that's right, darling. I forgot. You have quite a large family, as I recall. A bit hard for you to stand out. Is that why you applied to work for me? Not a bad idea. Rising above a farmer's life. Being able to send money to take care of your parents and siblings. I'm certain that makes you very special in your family's eyes. It's a good plan, and it shows you have initiative. It's a good sign. And there's a reason I've asked, of course. You see, darling, I've been invited to a very important conference. Royals, nobles, all over the continent will be there, learning from each other, sharing styles of leadership, innovation and technology, anything new and useful. It's a rare thing to see so many leaders willing to share so openly. It'll be far away, though, in a different country. The long journey necessitates traveling light. So I only plan to bring one servant with me, darling, and I want it to be you. It might seem like a strange decision at first. You simply haven't served me or anyone for very long. I have many servants far more experienced for such an important occasion. But I see very interesting traits in you, darling. You will learn quickly and easily incorporate new ideas into practice. Out of all my servants, I think it would benefit you most of all from the experience. will also show me, darling, whether or not you're reliable enough for more important duties. It is a choice, of course. You can make your decision whether or not you're willing. Well, what do you say, darling? Fair enough. It's prudent you take time to think over things. I won't require an answer for a few days. In the meantime, I'll tell you a bit more about what I expect from you if you accept. It will take about 2 weeks' travel to reach our destination by carriage. You will be in charge of handling my luggage during stops, as well as purchasing necessities and anything else I ask of you, darling. Once we arrive, darling, you will be my attendant. You will run errands, deliver messages, and answer the door to my room. None of this will be unfair to you, but keep in mind that you will be interacting with important people from many different places, so it is important to maintain professional and competent demeanor. And, darling, all eyes will be on you. People will be watching you to judge my character more than myself. But I'm confident in you. You are respectful, charming, and vigilant. If you accept, I believe you will serve me well. But for now, darling, you are dismissed. Tomorrow morning, I'll have you help the kitchen staff with serving breakfast. I'll talk to you then. Good night, darling.